kind of come full circle because we started at Batley Variety Club and we've kind of ended up there.
Can I add a last Batley one? This is the Northern announcer story.
Yeah.
They are a type of people. The star of the evening was Lulu. She's waiting in the wings. The guy comes on and says, "Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we introduce the main act tonight, I'd just like to make an announcement. We've heard that some guests leaving the premises have been seen urinating in the driveway late at night. This is not good for the show. It's not good for the people who live nearby. So please, from now on, no more urinating in the drive. Here's Lulu."
Yes, Mo, believe it or not, I was in the band.
You were the drummer.
I was in the band. And you never believe it. You never believe who the bass player was.
No.
John Paul Jones.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lord.
In Batley?
Yeah.
Wow.
We were in Lulu's band, John and myself. They used to come with me. He used to travel because he didn't drive.
Oh,
So he used to always travel with me. He was a good player, John, you know.
I'm going to show you an instrument. This is my first bass that I got in 1960. Can you see it? All right?
God.
Yeah.
It's called a Dallas Tuxedo, and it was the same bass as used by John Paul and Bill White.
Really?
Very primitive instrument, but good fun.
Yeah. But I remember that. I remember the night. I was obviously pissing myself laughing. It wasn't a good cue for me because I used to have to start the evening. Oh, I'm not quite ready. Yeah.
Do you remember in that club that the front of the stage went down into the floor to become a dance floor? Do you remember that?
Yes, yeah.
The guy who was the manager there, he was a guy called Peter Smith. Not Jimmy Corrigan, the owner. It was
No.
And it was a bit of a shit. And he decided on the first night that he didn't think Jess Conrad had any talent, which
welcome to the club.
Quite an intellectual stretch to come to that conclusion. And Jess used to do this idiotic thing that somebody mentioned earlier about shaking hands with people in the audience. So they let Jess went out onto the front part of that stage and they let it down with him on. And then he left and started all the way going up the aisle up to the back. And when he got to the very back, this guy, Peter Smith, sent the stage on its way back up. And Jess turned round, I remember, saw what was happening, ran down the aisle of Batley Variety Club, and just as about the stage was about to reach its maximum and lock back into place, leapt onto the edge of the stage, and his white stage pants did a probie and split perfectly in half, revealing a very dirty and rather grey jock strap. And of course, the audience had just fallen about. And me in the back, John Wetton was the bass player.
Yeah.
And we had a organ bass drums thing. So we are just killing ourselves. And he's clambering up, and you hear this. And he turned around, and I saw his arse just hanging out of his pants. And he couldn't understand why the audience were laughing. So he turned around him and he went, and I was going, "You've split your pants. Your pants." So he had to run off. We went and we played something like Take 5 just to annoy everybody. And then he came back on with a different pair of pants.
As Brian said earlier on, that you get the feeling that it's different now, that all these characters, they're not around anymore. Is that right? That it's a kind of dying art.
I'm sure they're out there. I mean, that's a generational thing. There must be. People take it so much more seriously now, though.
Yeah.
You know, I teach on courses at universities, music business studies. Yeah. For fuck's sake. And I always say to them, don't ask me. Go and buy Don Passman's book. He's an American lawyer who's written the best book on. And I said, and I'll tell you some stories about what it's really like.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I've said to so many lawyers in the music business, you guys need to get out of the office, get on a tour bus, go to Birmingham, learn what it's like. It's not the way they're isolated in their situations. But
it's also changed
because the money's changed so drastically.
Yeah.
I mean, not right now, obviously, but
Well, I remember approaching you and Peter Lister Todd for advice some years ago when I was trying to get a deal for my own live album, which is sorted now.
Yeah.
But both of you said if you started now, you wouldn't know how it worked.
No,
because it's changed so much, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if I was to soundbite it, music was corporatized in the 80s.
Yeah,
that's what happened.
Yeah,
and it went first with the record companies, then publishing, and then into live. And I think what happened was really inevitable. It was just as the marketplace expanded, and also as people realized that rock and roll, for want of a better term, had a lifespan. The early bands, I remember Frank Allen from the Searchers said to me, we expected to get 2 years out of it and then be back on the railways.
Yes. That was Clem.
Nobody took it seriously.
That was Clem, and his battery's run out again, so he just apologises and says goodnight to everybody.
Can you imagine what the vibrators in his house are like?
They just leave you wanting more.
But just before we finish up, the business side's changed because of money. And our society's changed because of money, and musicians have changed because of money, and actors and people who write books.
But now with things
artists used to come to me and they used to say, I want to be rich and famous.
Well, not with Spotify, they're not going to be.
No,
well, that's the other thing. The technology as well as the money has got in the way.
The other interesting thing is that back in the day when all of us were doing it, the bogeymen were the record companies. Well, YouTube, Spotify, the record companies were fantastic compared to what's happened now.
Record companies have shares in Spotify.
Obviously. Spotify, incidentally, has never made a profit.
No.
It's one of those, it's like when you're doing film. I did 9 film scores with Knopfler, and I used to be able to, in the independent films we did, I got him a percentage of the so-called producers' profits, which never produced a profit ever. Because that's the nature of film accounting.
I heard about this for the film The Crying Game.
Yeah.
The actors were promised a piece of the action when it went into profit in the UK. So it became a massive hit in America. Never had a profit here, so they got nothing.
When Mark did his first one, Local Hero, with David Putnam, who, funny enough, I spoke to last week, who I have all the time in the world for. Fantastic guy to deal with. But I managed to get Mark the same percentage of the profits as Burt Lancaster was getting.
Fantastic.
And it didn't matter because the production company went bankrupt. So that was the end of that.
I don't know if Brian remembers this, Clem might, but in the early days in the studios, if you did a film session, there'd be a queue of musicians at the end waiting to be given brown envelopes. Remember all that?
Yes.
And that's
£9.10 plus porterage.
That's right.
Well, we're paying today.
Yeah.
Shh.
But on the last Straits tour I did, and that was a long time ago, we had 285 people on the road.
Wow.
Bloody hell.
I had a weekly overhead. I can't remember what it was. Journalists would go on about how much money they thought we were making, and I'm sitting there thinking how much we were spending.
Yeah.
I never used to think about what was coming in.
But you used to spend a lot of money on studios and parking and all that sort of thing. That's why I've got this. Got this, and I've got a big room out the other side. I can get 20 violinists in the room next door. It's a big room, and I do everything in house. And with modern technologies you were just talking about, someone wants a cue. I did some stuff last night for a film that I'm doing, the Soho project, and we mixed it, we sent it. They said, "Can you change that bit there?" I said, "No problem. Be back in 5 minutes," and we changed it.
Sure.
And we sent it.